In a newer village in East Africa, a man tells of his culture, sings of his world. All my bulls have bells on their necks. My spotted bull glitters like lightning. He is white like a bird in ashes. He is so bright. Across the earth can be heard the lilt and cadence of different languages. Each language, growing, changing, separates us and at the same time links us together in groups.
Una comunidad puede ser Apitocota, ejemplo, fue Huancani, aquí lo Quisuarani, y luego las otras ex haciendas.
Each language is a framework for our feelings, our dreams, our distinct and varied cultures.
Ex haciendas.
Between 3,000 and 5,000 languages are known to exist in the world today. Each language is important to anthropologists, for language is the primary vehicle through which culture is shared and transmitted. Through language, we learn our culture, how to interpret the world around us, and how to share that understanding with others. Using language involves a complex process of associating sound with meaning.
We hear a continuum of sounds in our language, and we're able to convert those sounds into meaning. We have an idea, and we're able to express that idea in sounds. In a sense, that's what language is all about. It connects meaning with sound and translates sound into meaning.
Not only humans communicate through sound. All animals transmit information through a variety of sounds as well as through movements and odors. Gray Lake geese perform a dance before mating. Tropical perch compete for territory. The loser indicates submission by displaying colored stripes on its body. Army ants leave trails of chemicals to pass information to each other while foraging for food. Each chemical pattern conveys a distinct message. The dance of the honeybee signals specific information about the distance and direction to pollen. But no matter how many messages or calls an animal may have in its repertoire, each is mutually exclusive. One communication might accompany sexual activity, another a warning of danger. But animals generally cannot combine parts of two calls or gestures to make a new meaning. The communication is closed. Human language, on the other hand, is an open system, which means we can continually express new meanings without inventing new sounds. We do this by recombining sounds already in our repertoire according to a set of rules.
Because we're human and have human brains, and because we've had the experiences we've had with our languages, we acquire the rules of our languages and we have them in our head. These rules are finite, they're limited in number. Yet from these rules, we're able to produce an infinite number of sentences. We can understand sentences we've never heard before. We can utter sentences we've never heard before.
E, A, B, E, O,
Linguists look at language, at the structure of language, on a number of different levels. On the level of sound itself, or the phonological level, Linguists are interested in isolating the building blocks of sound called phonemes. Phonemes are sounds in languages which don't have meaning in and of themselves, but which signal differences in meaning. For example, in English, consider the difference between the words bit and pit. Now, they differ minimally, only in terms of the first sound. One begins with a B and one begins with a P. One is voiced and one is not voiced. We hear those difference in sounds, and we recognize and understand different words.
Its two ends apparently beyond the horizon. There is, according to legend, a boiling pot of gold at one end.
On a slightly higher level of linguistic analysis, we come to the morphological level. Morphemes, you can consider, for example, words morphemes. Individual words such as walk is a morpheme. In itself, it contains meaning. Morphemes also are not necessarily individual words. Consider walked, for example. The T on the end of the walked signals past tense. It's a bound morpheme. It can't exist by itself, but it does signal meaning. In and of itself, it has meaning.
The units of sound and meaning, the specific phonemes and morphemes, and the rules for combining them are different for each language. However, the capacity for language is universal among human beings. Every society has complex rules for forming language from among the sounds capable of being produced by the human mouth and throat. Language is based in human biology. In addition to mouth and throat structures adapted for speech, language requires a brain able to make associations among various types and sources of information, and to translate sound quickly enough to maintain communication. Children in all cultures acquire language in the same sequence as they mature biologically. Within the first weeks and months of life, the child learns the patterning of sound in social interaction. At the end of 10 months, the child babbles in the sounds of the culture. By 2 years, it telegraphs meanings in 1- and 2-word utterances, which are mini versions of adult language. Acquiring a language is a major accomplishment for every human, one learned in interaction with adults and peers. By 3, the child has a vocabulary of hundreds of words, increasing at a faster and faster rate as the child grows.
Lobster. Becky? Lightning.
At the same time that the vocabulary of the child increases, there is a drive toward acquiring a sense of the language, grappling with metaphor, with syntax, and with grammatical structure. The child masters the language in the context of the total culture and acquires that culture along with the language.
Show him the picture for you.
He's got scratch arms. He can kill you.
Can you say, oh boy?
And to wake you up. And these men will give you only milk and juice.
This child is drawing on cultural knowledge to convey meaning through the construction of sentences.
I'm to buy cars and dinners. A whole bunch of dinners.
The level of syntax has to do with the combination of words into sentences and the kinds of meanings that those combinations convey. For example, in the English sentence, John saw Mary, we know that it is John doing the seeing and Mary the one who is seen. If we reverse the word order, Mary saw John, then we know that Mary is the one doing the seeing. Syntax, through variation in word order, signals differences in meaning, conveys that sort of relational meaning. It, of course, can get much more complex than that. For example, if we consider the sentence, the man who lives by the river that I introduced you to last night is not going to join us on our picnic because he's heard on the radio that it's going to rain. We've taken a number of small ideas in English, smaller sentences, and combined them through our rules of syntax into a single sentence which conveys a great number of relational sorts of meanings.
We also send messages without words, through the use of space and posture. We can say many things with body language. Through facial expressions, eye contact, gesture, and hesitations, we can convey subtle kinds of meanings. We learn from our culture how to send these messages.
would be just a distraction to any cab driver.
This cab driver wends his way through a variety of social interactions by relying on skillful reading of body language.
There's one surefire way to get a cab, to raise your hand directly above your head and hold it up. Then a driver who's seeing 10,000 things every 2 minutes can clearly distinguish the one person from everything else going on, from people crossing the street, from people looking at their watch, people touching their hair, people talking with other people. You see these Italians, they're always speaking with their hands. They're always moving their hands. You would think they need a taxi, but they don't. They're merely conversing with someone next to them. Here's a young woman. She's touching her hair. She's very attractive. She'd be a good taxi trip, but I know she's only crossing the street.
The cab driver interprets meaning through the social context, and he notes that various subcultures within a given society use body language differently.
Here's a great guy right here with the conservative hairstyle, the suit. Looks like he's from right around here on the east side of Manhattan. He's got his attaché case, his sunglasses. It'd be a great trip out there and a big tip.
Will you please tell me, baby?
The codes of any language are shaped by and emerge from a specific social and historical heritage. Alongside so-called standard American English, which itself has many subcultural variations, Black English has developed its own rich pattern of code and cadence. Claudia Kernan is a sociolinguist, one who studies the social context of language use. Professor Kernan identifies some patterns of Black English.
A toast is a narrative or an epic poem. A lot of them are very lengthy, and usually they tell a story of the heroic...
Among blacks in the southern United States, the toast, a narrative in rhyme, is a form of communication that is both performance and social exchange. This toast tells the story of World War II.
December the 7th, 41.
Yeah.
That's when the Second World War had just begun.
Yeah.
They tell me Mussolini was holding out his paw and trying to get the European countries under Hitler's law.
Oh, no.
Well, if you have a little patience, I'm going to tell it to you.
Yeah.
The first thing they done, they got rid of the Jews.
No.
But Great Britain got trouble in mind. She rushed the poor boys to the fine line.
No.
A little better than that, the German bombed over Paris late one night. They had to look to Americans for to get supplies. They loaded up the vessel and started across, but the news reached back that the vessel was lost. Mr. Roosevelt didn't see that.
No.
He said, I just can't see. Why Adolf Hitler trying to rule the sea? He sent him a message right straight from the phone.
Through the toast, the man transmits an important part of black history to a new generation by explaining the contribution of black soldiers to the war effort.
She wouldn't fight on either side. She was a nation that would argue. You know what she did? Turned it around and bum Pearl Harbor. I don't know, but I was told that's the way Pearl Harbor being got stolen. But you know where we come in at? Negro soldiers standing at attention. They were the poor boys never to mention.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you about the colored man. December the 7th, 41. That's when the Yanks started him out of man to go. He stepped on deck and he got dead aim. He brought a Japanese bomber down in flames.
Yeah.
Some got wounded, some got killed, but naturally we know. God's holy Bible got the full field. I found out later, though, the rational and rubber, so it's gasoline. I had to get my black head in the Philippines. That's why I was What'd you say you didn't know? I was in the Philippines. I'm a big fan.
Down, down, where is one down?
Black churches also transmit culture and values through a unique language form.
And do you not know tonight one thing I like about God? He's so just tonight. God is a just God. God is so just tonight. Kennedy got to stand before God. I said the Rockefellers got to stand before God. And that day your money can't buy you nothing. No matter how much money you got, that can't buy it with God. But look what God said. God said, you just misunderstood, and he lended it to you for a few minutes. Amen. It's not your
You grow up in an all-black community, as I did. You don't really feel very different. You don't think about things like black English, black culture. I mean, it's the way what you learn is what everybody else does, and you behave like other people in the community behave. Anybody ever? Do you recall, for example, the first time you realized that you spoke differently than other people?
It was just merely a situation where I came to UCLA coming from basically an all-black environment, all-black high schools, and to that fact, predominantly black educators. I saw myself changing, actually, after my first year of college. The nasal quality of my speech changing, when I stopped using double negatives.
Well, I had just the opposite experience from you, where you feel the pressure to speak more standard. I kind of feel this pressure to speak more in black English because, like, my upbringing was, like, all in, like, a strictly standard English white school environment. So when I got to area where there were more blacks, and when I opened my mouth, the blacks looked at me like, where's this guy come from? And even the whites were looking like, well, man, are you sure you want to sound like that? I mean, you sound like a little bit too white for the way you look, So now, as I get older, I kind of am trying to modify my speech so that I sound more black, so that I can communicate better with blacks and consequently with whites.
What we are confronting basically are different grammatical rules. Our dialect is the sort of output of a somewhat different system of rules than standard English. But as you live in this society, you receive many, many subtle messages, sometimes not so subtle, that things that emanate out of black culture are to be valued less. And in some ways, it's been this sort of revolution in black consciousness that has made people like us really begin to focus on our culture as something worthy of study, just like any other culture, and focus on our heritage as a rich heritage, as an important component of the human experience, something that we should try to conserve and something that we should try to understand.
If shouting, if hooping, if moaning, if singing was good enough for my grandmama, I don't care what school I finished, I'm going to do the same thing. Amen. Amen. If it was good enough for them, it's good enough for me. It brought them a long way. It brought them a long way.
When groups of people are subjected to great change, traditional language skills can be lost, and with them important aspects of culture. These Kwak-Yutl of the western coast of Canada are trying to reconstruct their traditional culture by finding ways to teach their language to a new generation.
And that's the very reason why we started teaching it right as young as the nursery school aides. It's because you can't grab people when after they're already teenagers like they did to us and say, you're an Indian. All of a sudden we're Indians. We're all trying to be white when we were growing up.
There are some people who feel that the kind of things we're teaching children now has no place in today's world, that potlatches, that language belongs somewhere in the past, and that we have to get on with the business of living today, and that the language that you work in is English, so you don't need anything else. Some of us don't believe that.
Good. And this is Susha.
Teaching Kwakwala to the children of Alert Bay is an ironic reversal of the situation their grandparents faced at the same school 50 years ago.
It was really kind of tough for us because we didn't know how to speak English when I first went to school. When I left the classroom, I was talking Kwakwala to our friends, and the teacher caught me and she said, "You must not talk Kwakwala." And she sent me back in the classroom to make me write it 500 times in a book.
I like that house, which we can see over there. Is that Achexton?
Now, with so few people left who speak our language and an incomplete written record of it, we are making efforts to save Kwakwala with the help of a linguist.
Probably we've got 2 or 3 generations more in which Kwakwa will be spoken actively in the community, unless we can turn the tide now. We have a chance to do that. How about if you were standing next to a house? I like this house that's close by here. How would you say that? Ada and I get together and work on words and phrases that we think the kids could easily be taught. These are then put into books illustrated with local scenes so that the kids can identify, so that they are the community's books.
Katsna. Quick. Kawayu. Kwasta.
The Kwakwala speakers have given me an interesting opportunity. The opportunity to pay back an Indian community for all of the generations of anthropologists who took away their understandings rather than giving them back to the community.
Every language is a tool for survival, a matter of life and death for a culture and its people. Some anthropologists believe that language goes even further, that it predisposes people to see the world in a certain way. It shapes the way they think and behave, their very perception of reality.
The relationship between thought and language is a complex one. Does thought influence language? Does language influence thought? Now, what that means is that somehow the categories that our language imposes upon the world and which we habitually use influence the way we think of the world. Languages talk about such things as causality, as time, in different kinds of ways. A person using a particular language, habitually using a particular language that talks about time in a particular way, may begin to perceive time that way, to conceptualize time that way, and to conceptualize time in a different way than a person who speaks a language that talks about time in a different way.
In the world of the Hopi Indian, the linguist Benjamin Whorf found there were no words in their language to express a specific period of time. The Hopi could not, in their own language, say 3 hours long or a stretch of time. According to Whorf, time to the Hopi was an indefinite, undividable quality of experience. Because there were no words to express a specific time period, Whorf felt the Hopi could not conceive of the passage of time in the same way that people who speak English do. For example, people in the United States talk about spending time or wasting time or killing time as though time were a finite entity. For the Hopi, on the other hand, time is not something that can be used up. It can only be experienced. Whorf's view that reality is shaped by language is not totally embraced by other linguists and anthropologists. They feel that language also reflects reality, and as reality changes, so too will a language. Among the Nuer of Africa's Sudan, cattle are at the core of the group's way of life. The importance of cattle requires a wide variety of words to describe them. Day begins with the task of collecting and milking the cattle. They are the source of food, the subject of raids and wars. A boy takes his name from his cattle, and it walks with him throughout his life. Brown with the white spots, shining horns, twisted. There are over 400 cattle words in the Nuer language. In their vocabulary, subtle combinations of color pattern, parts of the body, and the shape of the horns are all elaborated. Cattle words are the focus of their vocabulary. They are used in greeting each other. They give symmetry to their art and ritual. They are the substance of their imagery and chant. There is a legend. Cow tells corn that her milk and flesh keep the people alive in good times and famine. Corn argues that when she is ripe, nothing tastes sweeter. But cow retorts that without her milk, grain has no taste, and milk will be there before grain is ripe. Being nomadic pastoralists, the Nuer's homeland has no borders, only the relationships of people and cattle. There are no words to express more formal boundaries. They would be of no use. Their world is reflected by their language. Whether language shapes our reality or whether it is simply a reflection of reality, it is an intimate part of our cultural perceptions and view of the world. Language allows us to share our cultures, to pass them on, to make each culture both separate and sensible to its participants. Each culture recognizes different units of sound and meaning to blend into a syntax that allows us to express all that we wish to understand and act upon.